I am Adonis Keaton, 36 years old, currently working as a director at a private bank in San Diego. My life before marriage was like an accountant's ledger. Neat, orderly, but lacking a bit of warmth. Then Taylor appeared, like a cool ocean breeze blowing through the dry numbers of my world. We've been married for only 6 months and everything is still in the honeymoon phase. She's 32, an interior designer with a smile that could melt an iceberg. We live in a small seaside apartment, but Taylor has always dreamed of a proper house where we could truly build a home. Adonis, I want a place where we can plant flowers, have dogs, and maybe have kids too. She would whisper in my ear every night, her sweet voice making my heart flutter. That day was a beautiful Sunday afternoon, with golden sunshine spilling over the streets of San Diego. Taylor had been insisting we go see a house she'd found online. "Honey, I think this is the perfect place for us. It has a backyard, it's close to the ocean, and the price is reasonable," she said excitedly as we drove to the address. I smiled, reaching over the gear shift to hold her hand. "If you like it, I'll go along with anything. But let's check everything carefully. Don't let emotions make the decision for us." I've always been the practical one, but with Taylor I was willing to let feelings lead a little. When we arrived, the house looked quite ordinary. A 2-story older home, painted white with a red-tiled roof, located in the suburbs about a 20-minute drive from downtown. It wasn't the luxurious style I had imagined, but Taylor's eyes lit up the moment she saw it. "Look, Adonis, those huge windows, the light will flood in," she exclaimed, pulling me by the hand inside. At first, the atmosphere was exactly like that of a newlywed couple house hunting for their future home. Joyful, excited, asking innocent questions about plumbing, electrical systems, and wall paint colors. I felt warmth in my heart, thinking this might be the start of a new chapter in our marriage. Waiting at the door was the real estate agent, a French woman named Juliette Carroll. She appeared to be in her early 40s, dressed elegantly in a black dress and blazer, her hair neatly pulled into a high bun. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Keaton. I'm Juliette. Welcome to the house," she said in English, but with such a heavy French accent that every word was drawn out and curled in a very native way. Taylor, who had studied French in college and loved reminding me of it, immediately smiled and switched to French for convenience. She said in French, "Hello, Juliette. So nice to meet you. We can speak in French if that's easier for you." Juliette nodded enthusiastically, and the conversation between the two women began flowing like the Seine River. I stood beside them, silently observing, pretending to inspect the walls or look out the windows. Taylor and Juliette naturally assumed I didn't understand French, a reasonable assumption since I had never told Taylor about the 2 years I spent living in Paris when I was younger. At first, everything was so normal that I barely paid attention. They talked about the layout. Juliette explained in French, "The kitchen is spacious with plenty of storage." Taylor nodded and responded. I occasionally chimed in with simple questions in English like, "How old is this roof?" to keep the atmosphere going, and Taylor would translate for Juliette. We moved from room to room, the spacious living room with an old fireplace, the master bedroom with a view of the backyard, even a garage big enough for 2 cars. I imagined us living here, waking up every morning to the smell of coffee and Taylor's laughter. My heart was full of hope. I thought this marriage was the best thing that had ever happened to me. But then everything changed in the blink of an eye. We were standing in the upstairs hallway when Taylor suddenly lowered her voice, almost whispering, and asked Juliette in French, "Are you absolutely sure the house has a secret room, fully equipped so that a person could live comfortably in there?" My heart started pounding. A secret room? A hidden room? I tried to keep a neutral expression, pretending to look out the window, but my ears were straining to hear everything. Juliette looked momentarily surprised, her eyes widening slightly, but then she nodded confirmation. "Yes, absolutely. It's a fully equipped secret room built by the previous owner and never dismantled. It has electricity, running water, even a small fridge and a basic bathroom." Taylor let out a quiet sigh of relief, her shoulders relaxing as though a huge weight had been lifted. "Thank God. And please do not mention this room in front of my husband." I want to come back and see it alone, just the two of us. She asked that the hidden room not be mentioned in front of her husband and that she wanted to return to see it privately, just the two of them. Those words stabbed straight through my heart like a knife. I stood frozen, blood rushing to my ears, but I forced myself to keep a calm face. I turned around and asked an innocuous question in English. "Nice view from here, isn't it?" Taylor smiled, translated for Juliet, and they continued as if nothing had happened. But inside me, a torrent of terrifying questions was surging. Why did Taylor need a secret room? A place where someone could live comfortably? The thought sent chills down my spine. We had just gotten married. Everything seemed perfect, or at least I thought so. What was she hiding? A lover? A dark secret? Or something even worse? I remembered the nights we lay together when she would suddenly wake up drenched in sweat, always brushing it off with a laugh, saying it was just a nightmare. Could it be related? I tried to stay calm, occasionally asking a few more questions about the price or paperwork so Taylor wouldn't suspect anything. But every step through the house now felt heavy. The initial joyful atmosphere had vanished, replaced by a fog of suspicion. The viewing ended quickly after that. Juliet saw us to the door and promised to send more information. On the way back to the car, Taylor looped her arm through mine, excitedly saying, "What do you think?" "I think it's perfect." I nodded with a forced smile. "It seems okay. Let's talk more about it." But in my mind, everything had already begun to change. Those fleeting French sentences were no longer harmless. They were the seeds of a storm about to hit our marriage. I drove home, gripping the steering wheel tightly, trying to push the dark thoughts away. But they clung stubbornly, like shadows creeping into every crack of the happiness I thought I had securely in my grasp. That night after the house viewing, as we lay in bed, Taylor hugged me tightly and whispered, "I love you so much, Adonis. Thank you for coming with me today." I kissed her forehead and replied, "I love you too." But I lay awake all night, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant sound of waves. The suspicion about the hidden room and Taylor's secretive behavior kept swirling in my head like an endless nightmare. Why didn't she want me to know? Was this a sign of betrayal or just some harmless secret? I didn't know, but one thing was certain. I had to investigate myself. I couldn't just lie here guessing and let fear eat away at me day by day. The next morning, the sun rose brilliantly over San Diego's sky, yet my heart remained dark. I woke up early and made coffee for both of us as usual, but my hands trembled slightly as I poured the water. Taylor was still sleeping soundly, her face peaceful like an angel's. I looked at her, a storm of conflicting emotions surging inside me. Love mixed with doubt. I didn't want to think badly of my wife, but those words had been too strange. I picked up my phone and found Juliet's number from the business card she gave us yesterday. My heart pounding, I texted, "Hello, Juliet. This is Adonis Keaton. I'd like to meet privately to discuss some technical details about the house. Could we arrange something for today?" The reply came quickly. "Good morning, Mr. Keaton. I'm free at 10 a.m. at my office. Does that work for you?" I agreed, then quietly left the house before Taylor woke up, leaving a note. "Gone to an early meeting. Love you." Juliet's real estate office was in downtown San Diego, a modern glass building with a gleaming logo under the sun. I drove there, my mind in turmoil. On the way, I rehearsed my questions. How could I ask without revealing I understood French? How could I get her to tell the truth? When I walked in, Juliet greeted me with a professional smile, her voice still thick with a French accent. "Mr. Keaton, please have a seat. What technical aspects would you like to discuss? Plumbing, electrical, or the roof?" She sat behind her desk, holding a coffee cup, her expression cautious but polite. I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice steady. "Actually, I overheard part of your conversation with my wife yesterday, about the hidden room. I understand basic French, enough to follow. Why does Taylor want a house with a hidden room like that?" Juliet froze for a moment, her face flushing, eyes darting away. "Oh, Mr. Keaton, there must be a misunderstanding. We were only talking about the layout." She tried to deflect, her voice trembling slightly, fingers tightening around the cup. But I looked her straight in the eye, my tone turning serious. "Juliet, please don't dodge the question. I clearly heard Taylor ask about the hidden room and tell you not to mention it to me. I need the truth. This is my marriage and I can't let it stay unclear like this." The air in the room suddenly grew tense, like a string about to snap. Juliet was silent for a long time, then sighed and set her coffee down. "All right, Mr. Keaton. I'll tell you, but you must promise not to let Taylor know I said anything. I don't want to lose a client." She began speaking in a near whisper, so low I had to lean forward to hear, as if afraid someone might be listening outside the door. From the very first day Taylor contacted me, she was extremely specific. She wanted a house that either already had a hidden room or had structural features that could be discreetly converted into one. I was shocked. Such a request is highly unusual. Juliet glanced at her glass of water, then continued slowly, each word carrying her initial confusion. "Hidden rooms aren't something people look for in San Diego. They only exist in old Cold War-era homes or properties with special security permits. So when Taylor kept insisting, it really struck me as strange." She paused, took a sip of water, her gaze distant as if piecing everything together again. I sat motionless, my heart pounding, trying to stay calm while waiting for her next words. Juliet lowered her voice even further. "I searched through many listings, old records, asked colleagues, but hidden rooms are extremely rare. When they do exist, previous owners almost always remove them before selling. When I found the house from yesterday, I almost didn't show it. Built in the 1970s, far from the city, outdated interior, creaky wood floors, peeling paint. And the price was high because of the lot size. I thought Taylor would reject it immediately." She shook her head, still seeming surprised. But she didn't. She was unusually interested. When I sent the floor plan, she kept asking about the hidden room. Where it was, how soundproof it was, whether there was a separate entrance, if it could be locked from the inside. She was so anxious that she kept pushing me to schedule a viewing as soon as possible, as if she couldn't wait another day. By that point, a chill ran down my spine like ice water flowing along my back. Taylor actively searching for a house with a hidden room was no longer coincidental. It had been deliberate from the start. She hadn't fallen in love with the house because of the backyard or big windows. She needed the hidden room, needed it so badly she was willing to overlook every other flaw. Why? Did she say anything about the reason? I asked, my voice hoarse with emotion. Juliet shook her head. She didn't give details. She only said it was for personal reasons and asked me to keep it confidential. It was precisely that urgency and determination that surprised me, as if she needed that room for a specific critical purpose more important than price or location. I've never had a client like this. She finished with an apology. I'm sorry for keeping it secret at Taylor's request. As agents, we have to respect client confidentiality. But honestly, I don't understand what she needs a hidden room for either. Maybe for storing valuable items or, I don't know. She looked at me with guilty eyes as if sharing the burden. I nodded, thanked her, but my mind was in chaos. When I stepped out of the office, the San Diego sun was blinding, yet I felt cold inside. Countless unanswered questions flooded my head. What is Taylor hiding? Who is the hidden room for? Why was she so desperate to find such a place that she'd accept a rundown old house? I drove, but not straight home. I stopped at a roadside cafe and sat there for hours, staring blankly at people passing by. The dark thoughts kept rushing back. I remembered the nights Taylor would suddenly wake up drenched in sweat, eyes panicked. She always said just a nightmare, but now I wondered if those were memories from her past. Taylor rarely spoke about her childhood, only that she grew up in France, lost her mother early, and immigrated to the US alone. Could the hidden room be connected to that past? Or was she in some kind of trouble? Debt? Enemies? The thought terrified me. I'm her husband, the one who's supposed to protect her, yet now I felt powerless. I wondered whether I should confront Taylor directly, but then shook my head. If she's been hiding it, she certainly wouldn't tell the truth. I needed more clues. I needed time to watch. On the drive home, the sea breeze blew through the car window, carrying the familiar salty scent, but it did nothing to calm the restlessness inside me. When I opened the apartment door, Taylor was sitting at her desk, sketching interior layouts on her computer. She looked up and flashed a radiant smile. "You're back. I've been thinking about how to decorate the new house. What do you think? Soft blue or cream white for the bedroom walls?" I forced a smile, walked over and hugged her from behind. "You decide, love. Whatever you choose looks beautiful in my eyes." We had lunch together and talked about work, but every word I said felt strained. I watched her eat happily, laughing and joking, and wondered whether that smile was genuine. Did she notice the change in me? Or was she pretending everything was normal to hide something? That night I barely slept. Taylor lay curled in my arms, breathing steadily, her face as peaceful as a child's. I looked at her and felt guilt wash over me for doubting my wife, the woman I loved more than anything in the world. Taylor was the light of my life, the one who had pulled me out of lonely days filled only with work and numbers. Lying there watching her sleep, I blamed myself. Why am I doubting her? Maybe it's all a misunderstanding. Maybe the hidden room is just for storage, like Juliet guessed. But then the fear came rushing back, mixed with guilt. I was living next to a secret so big it could destroy our marriage. What if the hidden room was for someone else? What if Taylor was in danger? The thought made me shudder. I lay awake until dawn, listening to the distant waves like a whisper warning of the storm to come. The next morning I got up early, made coffee, and made my decision. No confrontation. I would keep secret the fact that I understood French, that I knew about her request for a hidden room, and that I had spoken to the agent. If I revealed it now, Taylor would become guarded, and I would never learn the truth. If she had gone to such lengths to hide it, it must be something so serious she didn't dare tell me. Perhaps it was pain from her past or something she was trying to protect me from. To uncover the truth, I had to stay calmer than she was. Wait, watch, and quietly gather every clue. That was my way. The banker accustomed to managing risk, always planning before acting. I would pretend I knew nothing and let Taylor reveal herself. That afternoon, as we sat on the balcony watching the ocean, I suddenly announced, "Baby, I've thought about the house. I'm in. Let's buy it. If you love it, we'll go ahead with the paperwork." Taylor froze for a second, then her eyes lit up and she threw her arms around me. "Really? I'm so happy. I think it's going to be the perfect home for us." I clearly saw the joy mixed with relief on her face. Her shoulders relaxed, her smile wider than usual. Was she relieved because the hidden room would soon be hers? The thought stabbed my heart, but I still smiled and kissed her. "Yes, really. I want you to be happy." We called Juliet immediately, signed the contract, and everything moved fast. The price was high, but I didn't care. This was my way to get closer to the truth. Taylor and I threw ourselves into moving. The following days were a whirlwind of cardboard boxes, furniture, and laughter. We rented a truck and transferred everything from the old apartment. Taylor excitedly arranged the interior. "Honey, I'm going to paint the living room cream and put the sofa right here." I helped her, but my mind was always on the hidden room, the one behind the bookshelf in the basement that Taylor had never once mentioned. We spent our first night in the new house. Taylor whispered, "It feels like we're starting a whole new life." I held her close, but my heart was filled with worry. One day, while Taylor was at work, I secretly contacted a security company that specializes in hidden surveillance equipment. I found them online, highly rated for discretion. I called, "Hi, I need hidden cameras installed in my house. No one can know." The representative, a guy named Mike, met me at a nearby cafe. Tall, professional voice. "What exactly do you need? We have ultra-small cameras disguised as shirt buttons or wall outlets." I asked them to install tiny cameras in several discreet locations: living room, kitchen, garage, and especially near the entrance to the hidden room. Everything was camouflaged so perfectly that even Taylor, with her sharp designer's eye, wouldn't notice. I chose models with audio recording and motion alert notifications sent directly to my phone, accessible only through a private, heavily encrypted app. The installation happened in secret while Taylor was away. Mike and his team showed up looking like plumbers and finished in 2 hours. All done, Mr. Keaton. No one will suspect a thing. The app will notify you of any movement. I checked on my phone. Crystal clear video, sharp audio. Doing it made me feel guilty, like I was betraying Taylor, invading my own wife's privacy. I sat alone in the basement, staring at the empty monitor, asking myself, what am I doing? This is a marriage, not a spy movie. But the fear of losing my wife, in a way I couldn't yet comprehend, was greater than everything else. If the hidden room was meant for something bad, if Taylor was in danger, I had to know so I could protect her. Suspicion had become a double-edged blade, cutting into my heart a little more every day. The first days in the new house passed under a veneer of false peace, but suspicion never released its grip on me. I checked the app obsessively, almost compulsively. On the way to the bank, during meetings, even in the middle of the night while Taylor slept soundly beside me. Every time I opened it, my heart pounded, waiting for a motion alert. Am I overthinking this? I kept telling myself, trying to push the anxiety away. But then I would remember Taylor's relieved sigh when Juliet confirmed the hidden room, the way she had lowered her voice to whisper in French, and my grip on the phone would tighten again. On the surface, our life was still sweet. Romantic dinners, warm hugs, plans for the future. Taylor often talked about having children. What do you think if we had a little girl? I'd name her Ella, she'd say. I would smile, but inside me a storm was raging. I began noticing small details. Taylor often received messages in the afternoon. Her expression would flicker for a moment before she laughed it off. She always changed the subject whenever I asked about her family or childhood. Suspicion coiled inside me like a venomous snake waiting to strike. Then on a Wednesday afternoon, everything shattered. I was in the bank in the middle of a meeting about a major loan, but my mind was elsewhere. My phone vibrated softly, an alert from the app. Motion detected in the living room. My heart clenched. My hands shook as I opened the app. The image was crystal clear. Taylor opened the front door and let a strange man inside. He was tall, unsteady on his feet, wearing a shabby coat and unkempt hair. A chill ran down my spine, blood rushed to my ears. "Who is that man?" I whispered to myself, zooming in. Taylor looked anxious, shoulders hunched, her voice coming through the hidden microphone. "Come in quickly, don't let anyone see you." The man nodded and stepped into the light of the living room camera. And then I recognized him instantly. It was Taylor's stepfather, Claude Beaumont. My heart stopped. Claude, the man I had met only once at our wedding 6 months ago. He had arrived late, disheveled, in a wrinkled shirt reeking of alcohol. He had hugged Taylor roughly, slurring, "My girl, congratulations, now you're rich. Don't forget who helped you get here, eh?" Taylor had given an awkward smile and introduced him to me. "Honey, this is my stepfather, Claude. He came from France." I had shaken his hand but felt no warmth. His crude speech, shifty eyes, and the stench of liquor had repelled me. After the wedding, Taylor rarely mentioned him, only saying, "He lives in France. We're not close." Now, watching him on the screen walking into my house, rage and confusion surged through me. Why? Why was Taylor bringing him here? I sat frozen, the meeting around me fading into background noise. Taylor led Claude straight to the basement, pushed the bookshelf aside, and opened the hidden room door. "Stay in here. Don't come out when he gets home," she whispered, her voice trembling. Claude smirked. "Don't worry, darling. Daddy knows what to do." Then the door closed. I turned off the app, my knuckles white as I gripped the desk. I couldn't understand why my wife was secretly housing her stepfather in our home. Claude, a crude, apparently alcoholic man, was now living in the hidden room Taylor had so desperately sought. Was this her secret? Hiding her stepfather, but why? Was he in legal trouble? In debt? The thought made my head spin. Over the following days, I watched silently through the cameras like an invisible ghost. Whenever I left for work, Claude would emerge from the hidden room and roam the house as if he owned it. The kitchen camera caught him raiding the fridge, grabbing my beers, chugging them, and tossing the cans everywhere. He smoked in the living room, ash falling onto the hardwood floor Taylor had just cleaned. Nice fancy house. My girl did well, he muttered to himself, voice dripping with sarcasm. He sprawled on the sofa, blasted the TV, left candy wrappers, old newspapers, even dirty clothes strewn everywhere. Watching it, my blood boiled. This was my house, our home, and he was treating it like a cheap bar. Yet Taylor, my wife, always came home earlier than usual, around 4 p.m., to erase every trace before I returned. She wiped the floors, vacuumed, took out the trash, rearranged everything to keep up the illusion of a perfect house. Seeing her frantically cleaning on the screen, sweating, my heart ached. Taylor was living a double life, happy with me on one side, serving her stepfather like a slave on the other. The recordings revealed something even more horrifying. I listened to their conversations, the audio sharp and clear from the hidden mics. Claude showed no gratitude. He barked orders and demands, treating Taylor as though it were her duty to obey. One afternoon, the recording played. "Girl, bring me a beer, I'm thirsty." Taylor softly, "Yes, Dad, just a moment." But Claude growled, "Hurry up! You think you're the lady of the house now? Without me, you'd still be wandering the streets." Taylor said nothing, brought the beer, her hands trembling as she handed it over. Claude took it and sneered, "You married that rich husband to escape your past, didn't you? If you don't do what I say, I'll go talk to Adonis, tell him all about your filthy past. Let's see if he still loves you then." His voice was pure malice, slicing through the air like a blade. Taylor, shaking, begged, "Dad, please don't. I'll do everything you ask. Just keep quiet." Her voice broke as if she were being dragged back into a nightmare childhood. Every time I listened to that recording, alone in my office, headphones clamped on, my fists clenched until they went white. Rage and pain tore at me, seeing my wife terrorized by threats I couldn't yet stop. Claude was a monster. He controlled Taylor with fear, using her filthy past as a weapon. But what was that past? Taylor had never spoken about her childhood beyond saying her mother died early and she had been raised by her stepfather. It made me even more uneasy, as if I were walking on thin ice that could crack at any moment. I wanted to storm down to the hidden room right then, punch Claude in the face, drag Taylor out of that hell, but I forced myself to hold back. I knew that acting impulsively could make everything far worse for her. Suspicion had now become real, bleeding pain. I kept asking myself, what is this filthy past? Had Taylor been abused? Was there some crime? The thought made me shudder, but I knew I had to wait for the right moment to pull my wife out of that darkness. After days of watching her stepfather threaten Taylor through the cameras, I could no longer bear it. The pain had built up like a balloon about to burst, draining every ounce of my strength. I lost my appetite, couldn't sleep, and every time I looked at Taylor, guilt and pity twisted inside me like a knife. She was living in hell, and I, her husband, was watching it all in silence. I decided I had to confront her, but not harshly. I needed to be gentle so she would open her heart. It was a Friday evening. A light rain was falling over San Diego, the drops pattering softly on the red-tiled roof. We were in the living room, Taylor reading by the fireplace, me pretending to review work documents. The atmosphere was warm and cozy, but my heart was ice cold. I took a deep breath, closed the laptop, and asked softly, "Sweetheart, I need to ask you something. Why is Claude living in our hidden room?" Taylor froze. The book slipped from her hands and hit the wooden floor with a dull thud. Her face went white, eyes wide with panic. She tried to deflect, stammering, "Claude? What are you talking about? How could my stepfather be living in our house?" Her voice trembled. Her fingers clutched the edge of the sofa as if it were the last thing keeping her afloat. I looked straight into her eyes, calm but firm. "Don't hide it anymore, love. I know everything. I know about the hidden room, I know Claude is in there, and I know he's been threatening you." All strength seemed to drain from her body. She collapsed into the chair, eyes red, tears spilling uncontrollably. How do you know? Have you been spying on me?" she whispered, voice breaking. Then she broke down completely. Sobs echoed through the quiet living room, mingling with the rain outside. Taylor buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking violently, repeating over and over, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Adonis. I never wanted to bring him here, but I had no choice. He forced me, so he would stay silent." I knelt in front of her, my heart tearing apart. I had never seen Taylor this fragile. The strong, radiant woman I loved now looked like a lost child. I pulled her into my arms, stroking her back, whispering, "Don't cry, baby, I'm here. I'm not angry with you, I just want the truth." But she kept crying, tears soaking my shirt, her body trembling against mine. When I gently asked why she was so terrified, she fell silent for a long time, trembling, as though fighting an internal war. The rain grew heavier. Distant thunder rumbled, mirroring the storm inside her. Finally, choking on her words, she confessed, "The thing I'm most afraid of is you. I was terrified that if you knew the truth, you'd leave me. You'd be disgusted by me, think I'm dirty, unworthy." Those words stabbed straight through my heart. Pain gripped me, tears welled in my own eyes. I held her tighter and told her nothing in the world could make me leave her. I only wanted to know so I could protect her. "You're my wife, Taylor. Nothing will ever change that. Tell me so I can carry this burden with you," I whispered, kissing her hair, the familiar scent making my heart ache even more. Reassured, she began to speak, voice breaking between sobs. She wiped her eyes and stared out the dark window, as if looking into a distant past. "When I was 5, my real father died in a car accident. My mother remarried Claude. At first he seemed kind, bought me gifts, took care of us. I thought he'd be a good dad." Her voice grew quieter, shaking. "But only a few months later he showed his true colors. He drank, then beat my mother. Late at night I'd hear her crying, furniture crashing, the sounds of fists. The next morning she'd have bruises, but always lied. Mommy fell. When I asked, she'd just hold me and cry silently. Claude forced her to hide everything, threatening to kill us both if she ever told." Taylor paused, gripping my hand like it was her lifeline to the present. She continued, voice choked. "Then one rainy night when I was 10, my mother disappeared. She left without a goodbye, leaving me alone with Claude. I woke up to an empty house. He was sitting at the kitchen table, smirking. 'Your mom abandoned you, little girl. Now it's just you and Daddy.' Tears streamed down her face again. I held her tighter, rage boiling inside me. After she left, Claude started tormenting me, forcing me to clean, cook, work from morning till night, beating me for no reason when he was drunk, and sometimes touching me in ways that made me sick with fear. I'd lock myself in my room, but he'd pound on the door and scream, 'I lived in hell, Adonis. Every day was terror.' She struggled to go on. People outside, school, neighbors, spread cruel rumors about me. They believed the lies Claude told, thought I was a bad kid. I carried that guilt and shame for years, always feeling I wasn't good enough, didn't deserve anyone." Taylor squeezed my hand, voice shattering. "And Claude still uses that to control me even now. He threatens to tell everyone, to expose me as a whore." I sat stunned, torn between agony and fury. The image of little Taylor alone fighting that monster broke my heart. I pulled her close, my own tears falling onto her shoulder. "You've suffered so much, Taylor. I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. I won't let Claude destroy our life anymore." My voice was hoarse with emotion as I stroked her back to comfort her. The rain kept falling, but the room was now filled with sobs and whispered words of love. I pictured Taylor's childhood, those rainy nights in France, silent tears, endless fear, and hatred for Claude burned inside me. He wasn't a stepfather, he was a demon. I told her we had to report him, that it was the only way to end this. My tone was firm yet gentle. "We have to bring him into the light, love. I have proof from the cameras, we can call the police." But Taylor immediately shook her head in panic, eyes wide with terror. "No, Adonis, we can't. For me, digging up the past is even more terrifying than Claude himself." She clutched my hands so tightly it hurt, voice trembling. "If we report him, he'll drag everything out in court, in the newspapers, in front of friends and colleagues. I'm terrified of the judgmental looks, the whispers. I can't go back to being that shunned little girl. I wouldn't survive it. I saw the deepest fear of her life in her eyes, not of Claude, but of being judged, of losing the peaceful life she had fought so hard to build. Taylor had been running from her past for years, and the thought of exposing it made her shrink like a frightened child. I knew she was battling the greatest terror of her life, so I didn't push. I simply held my wife in silence, stroking her gently. We sat like that for hours as the rain slowed and the thunder faded, but the storm inside us remained. Taylor rested her head on my chest, cried herself to exhaustion, and I whispered, "I'm here, my love. We'll get through this together." But in my mind, a plan was already forming. I would not let Claude win. Even if Taylor was afraid, I had to protect her. That night we fell asleep in each other's arms, but my sleep was restless, filled with dreams of Claude's sneer, Taylor's tears, and me standing in the middle, powerless. The truth had been uncovered, but the journey to healing had only just begun. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the house changed subtly but unmistakably. Taylor became more affectionate. She would suddenly hug me in the middle of the day and whisper words of love as if trying to make up for all the secrets she had kept. Deep down, though, I knew Claude was still there, lurking in the basement like a ghost waiting to pounce. I kept the cameras running but deleted all the old audio recordings out of respect for Taylor. Still, the worry smoldered inside me. I spent nights searching online about domestic abuse, reading how victims often remain tied to their abusers out of fear, and my heart ached even more. Taylor was a victim and I had to be her rock. We tried to live normally. Every morning Taylor made coffee and we sat on the balcony watching the San Diego ocean sparkle under the sun. "Honey, today I'm starting a new design project. I feel better already," she would say, her smile more genuine than before. I smiled back, but my mind was still on Claude. He remained in the hidden room and Taylor still secretly brought him food, though less often now. She promised she would convince him to leave, but I could see the fear in her eyes whenever the subject came up. "I'll try, Adonis, but he won't just accept it." I nodded and held her, yet my nerves were stretched like a wire about to snap. I knew everything could explode at any moment. I began planning quietly, contacting a lawyer friend, saving the old audio files as evidence. But I didn't act yet. I was waiting for Taylor to be ready. Then the fateful day arrived, a gloomy Tuesday afternoon. The San Diego sky was heavy with dark clouds. I was at the bank buried in loan paperwork, but old habits die hard. I still checked the camera feed from time to time just to feel safe. My phone vibrated softly. Significant motion detected in the living room. My heart seized. My hands shook as I opened the app. The screen showed Taylor cleaning up the usual mess Claude had left behind. Beer cans, cigarette ash, old newspapers scattered across the kitchen floor. Everything looked like the previous days. She wiped, sighed wearily, trying to restore the perfect look before I got home. I exhaled, thinking that was all, but minutes later the hidden room door burst open and Claude staggered out, clearly drunk. He swayed, shirt disheveled, eyes bloodshot from alcohol. "Girl, bring Daddy another beer," he slurred, walking up behind Taylor. The camera captured it clearly. He reached out and touched her lower back, then slid his hand down to her hip in a blatantly repulsive way. Taylor flinched, terrified, backing away repeatedly. "Stop it, you're drunk. Go back to your room." Her voice shook as she pushed him away. But Claude grew more aggressive, sneering, "What's wrong, sweetheart? Daddy just wants a hug. You're too fancy now, forgotten your old man? Or are you scared your husband will find out what you used to—" The vile words that followed made rage explode inside me. Blood rushed to my head. I gripped the phone so hard the screen cracked slightly. "You little bitch, you think you can escape me?" Claude growled, grabbing Taylor's arm and yanking her toward him. Taylor fought back harder, shoving him. "Let go! I'll call the police!" Claude's face instantly twisted from lecherous to furious. He shoved her to the kitchen floor with a loud thud that echoed through the microphone, then began hitting her, slapping her face, punching her shoulder, roaring, "You dare call the cops on me, I'll kill you!" Taylor screamed and cried, curling up to protect her head. "Stop! Please, Dad, don't hit me anymore!" I lost my mind. Sitting in my office, it felt like my blood was boiling. My trembling fingers dialed 911. I stammered out the emergency. "Help! My wife is being attacked at home right now. It's on camera. The attacker is her stepfather, Claude Beaumont. Address, 12 Ocean Drive, San Diego. He's going to kill her." The dispatcher asked questions, but I didn't wait. I hung up and bolted from the office, leaving stunned colleagues behind. After calling the police, I sped home, breaking every speed limit, weaving dangerously through highway traffic, horns blaring. Tears streamed down my face, mixed with pure rage. How dare he? How dare he touch my wife? The car flew through familiar streets. The San Diego sea wind whipped through the open window, but I felt nothing except terror that I might lose Taylor. "Hold on, baby. I'm coming," I whispered, flooring the accelerator, running red lights. I screeched into the driveway, leaped out, and burst through the front door, which was already wide open. I charged straight into the kitchen, where the nightmare unfolded. Taylor lay on the floor, face swollen, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth while Claude loomed over her, arm raised for another blow. I didn't think. I charged like a wild animal and punched Claude square in the face. "Get your hands off her, you bastard!" He fell backward but scrambled up, roaring and lunging at me. We fought viciously. I dragged him off Taylor, hammering punches into his stomach and face. He clawed and struck back, reeking of alcohol. "So you're the husband. I'll kill you," Claude bellowed, but I was stronger. I slammed him against the wall and kept hitting. It lasted only seconds, yet felt endless. Furniture crashing, heavy breathing, Taylor sobbing, "Adonis, please stop!" My blood was on fire, but then police sirens wailed outside. Minutes later, 4 armed officers stormed in, responding to the 911 call. They pulled us apart immediately and handcuffed Claude on the spot. Still drunk, he kept shouting, "I'm innocent! My daughter invited me here." 2 officers held me back as I panted, fists clenched. "He attacked my wife. It's all on camera." Taylor was moved to a safe corner. A female officer knelt beside her, cleaning the blood from her face and documenting the visible injuries. Swollen cheek, bruised arms, split lip. "Are you okay, ma'am? We're taking you to the hospital," the officer said gently. Taylor nodded weakly, eyes wide with shock, tears rolling down as she looked at me. I gave my statement right there. Claude Beaumont has been living illegally in our basement hidden room. He's been mentally and physically abusing my wife. I have everything on video. Claude slurred his denial. "Lies. Taylor wanted me here. She's my daughter." But Taylor, still in shock, couldn't speak yet. She just sat curled up, trembling. The police read Claude his Miranda rights. "You have the right to remain silent." Then they loaded him into the patrol car, arresting him on charges of assault, domestic battery, emotional abuse, threats, and criminal trespass. Watching him shoved into the back of the cruiser, I felt a mix of relief and lingering fury. At last, the monster had been dragged into the light. I was asked to come to the station for a full statement. Sitting under harsh fluorescent lights in the interview room, I told them everything. From the house viewing, my suspicion about the hidden room, installing the cameras, discovering Claude, to today's attack. I handed over my phone and showed the video from the app. Undeniable evidence. The detective nodded. "We'll review everything you've provided. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Keaton." The interview lasted about 2 hours. I sat there, hands shaking around a paper cup of water, my mind replaying the image of Taylor on the floor. When it was over, I was free to go. I raced straight to the nearby hospital where Taylor was being monitored, its neon lights glowing in the night. Walking into a room and seeing my wife lying there, cheeks swollen and red, arm bandaged, my heart shattered. I rushed to her side and held her tightly, feeling her body tremble in my arms. Taylor buried her face in my chest and sobbed like a child. "Adonis, you're here. I was so scared, he hit me." I stroked her hair and whispered, "It's over, my love. Claude is in jail. I'm right here." The doctor came in and said the injuries were not severe, no broken bones, but she would need psychological follow-up. We sat there, hands clasped tightly, and I knew that from now on we had no choice but to face the past head-on. There was no more running. Claude was no longer a shadow, he was real, and we would have to face the courts, the memories, the pain. But holding Taylor in that moment, I felt stronger than ever. The storm had finally broken over us and we would survive it together. The San Diego hospital was eerily quiet at night, only the steady beeping of machines and the faint smell of antiseptic in the air. I sat by Taylor's bedside the entire night, holding her hand tightly, watching her pale face under the dim neon light. Every time she whimpered in her restless sleep, my heart clenched as if squeezed in a vice. I kept replaying the horrific scene in the kitchen. Claude, drunk and raging, arm raised high, Taylor curled up on the floor. Rage still boiled inside me, but now it was mixed with boundless sorrow. Taylor, the strong woman I loved, had endured this alone for years, and the physical wounds were only the surface of her soul-deep pain. I whispered to myself, I have to end this. He can never come back. The next morning, as the San Diego sun peeked through the hospital window, casting warm rays across Taylor's face, she woke up with red-rimmed eyes. The doctor did a final checkup, discharged her with painkillers and a strong recommendation for therapy, and we drove home in silence, hands tightly clasped. The house was now deathly still, no more stumbling footsteps from the basement, but the air still felt heavy, as if a ghost lingered. Taylor sat on the sofa, staring out at the ocean with a distant look, while I made her hot tea. After that fateful night with Claude in custody, I sat beside her, no longer in the hospital bed but on the sofa, and gently urged her to end the suffering once and for all by taking him to court. Baby, we can't let him win. He's been arrested and we need to add more charges. Let's sue him. Make him pay for what he did to you and your mother. This time, Taylor didn't resist as fiercely as before. She looked at me, eyes glistening, and was silent for a long while. After the brutal assault she had just survived, the bruises still visible on her face, the pain with every movement. She finally realized that if she kept running, Claude would haunt her forever. You were right. I'm tired of running, but I'm scared. Scared of having to tell everything in court. Her voice trembled. Her fingers tightened around the teacup. I pulled her close, stroking her back. I know you're scared, but I'll be right there with you. We'll do this together. He can't threaten you anymore. Taylor gave a weak nod, tears rolling down her cheeks, but in her eyes burned a small spark of resolve I had never seen before, like a flame flickering back to life after years of being smothered. A few mornings later, calmer now, Taylor took my hand and said she was ready to face the past, no matter how painful it would be to bring everything into the light. We sat on the balcony, the salty ocean breeze carrying the scent of hope. Adonis, I think we should start. I don't want Claude to ever come back. Let's take him to court. Those words lifted a boulder from my chest. Finally, Taylor had chosen to fight. I kissed her forehead, overflowing with pride. We'll do it, love, I promise. That marked the beginning of the journey to piece together the fragments of her past. A difficult but necessary path toward healing. We flew to France, to the neighborhood where Taylor had once lived with Claude and her mother. A small town on the outskirts of Paris with narrow cobblestone streets and a faded white house that time had worn down. The air felt heavy, as though the haunting memories still clung to the walls. Taylor trembled as we arrived, gripping my hand tightly. I've never come back. Since I fled to America. We knocked on neighbors' doors. A man in his 70s who lived across the street sighed, Little Taylor? Claude? Of course I remember. The shouting echoed through the whole neighborhood, your mother Renee's cries, furniture crashing. Whenever Claude was drunk, he beat her. I saw her bruised so many times, but she always denied it, said she fell. Taylor listened, tears streaming, yet she nodded. Thank you. Would you be willing to testify for me? The old man nodded firmly. I'll help you, poor child. We kept knocking, and slowly the pieces came together. The journey didn't stop there. We went to the old hospital where Taylor's mother had been treated, a small facility with dusty archives. With legal permission, we reviewed the records. They showed repeated injuries and bruises and clear patterns of domestic violence. Renee had been admitted at least 5 times for falling downstairs or bicycle accidents, but the descriptions didn't match. Black eyes, broken fingers, classic signs of beating. Taylor's hands shook as she read, Mom, she went through so much. In Taylor's own childhood medical files, we found multiple admissions for falls with injuries that contradicted Claude's old excuses, marks on her back and arms consistent with belt lashes or punches. I remember, "He used to hit me with his belt," Taylor whispered, voice breaking. I held her as rage boiled inside me. These documents were living proof that Claude was no stepfather. He was a tormentor. Next, we visited Taylor's old elementary school, a small building with a green playground, but the memories here were dark. Her former homeroom teacher, now retired Madame Dupont, met us at a cafe nearby. She was about 60, silver-haired, memories still sharp. Taylor? Such a bright, tiny girl, but she often came to school terrified. Bruises on her arms and legs, eyes red from crying. Many times she begged to stay after school because she didn't want to go home. I asked, but she just shook her head and cried. Madame Dupont sighed. I suspected Claude, but back then we had no proof and he threatened the school if we interfered. Now, if you need me, I'll testify. Taylor hugged her, sobbing. Thank you. You were the only one who ever cared. With every new witness and every copied document, I carefully compiled a complete dossier. Scanned papers, recorded statements, organized chronologically. It was meticulous work, but essential to building an airtight case. Once the evidence was overwhelming, neighbor testimonies proving years of abuse in France, medical records, the teacher's account, plus the hidden camera footage of Claude's assault in our home. We met with Marcus Hale, an old college friend and respected criminal attorney. We flew back and went to his downtown San Diego office, with its ocean view and professional atmosphere. We laid out the entire story from the house viewing to the attack, along with the thick folder of evidence. Marcus, salt and pepper hair and sharp eyes, examined everything carefully, flipping through pages, watching the video on his laptop. Adonis Taylor, this is a very strong case. Clear evidence, witness statements proving long-term abuse in France, matching medical records and the U.S. assault on video. Enough to charge Claude with prolonged domestic violence, psychological torture, based on Taylor's accounts of inappropriate boundary violations in childhood, threats, assault, and trespass. Under Marcus's guidance, Taylor and I officially filed the lawsuit against Claude, beginning the fight for justice she had fled from for so many years. We sat at his desk, hands trembling as we signed, hearts pounding. When Taylor finished signing, she looked at the paper as if staring into a new future. I did it, Adonis. Marcus nodded. This case has a high chance of success. If needed, Claude can be extradited from the U.S. to France, but we'll start here. Taylor walked out of the lawyer's office with red eyes but a steady gaze. For the first time, she no longer felt like the terrified child backed into a corner. We strolled along the San Diego shore, the wind tossing her hair, and Taylor smiled. I feel freer, Adonis. I held her close, filled with hope, yet aware the road ahead would still be long. Court dates looming, possible media coverage, painful memories dragged back into the light. But now, we were no longer running. The weeks of preparation for the trial were the most nerve-wracking period of our lives. Marcus coached Taylor on how to testify, drilling for hours in his office. A large room with an ocean view, yet the atmosphere always felt as heavy as a real courtroom. Taylor sat in front of a mirror practicing maintaining eye contact while recounting the painful details. He beat me with a belt. He touched me. Her voice shook at first but gradually grew steadier. The trial against Claude began on an autumn morning at the San Diego courthouse, a modern glass building with long, echoing corridors that smelled of old paper. The courtroom was packed, drawing local reporters, TV crews, and even representatives from domestic violence advocacy groups. They waited outside the doors, microphones raised, cameras flashing every time we entered. Mrs. Keaton, how do you feel facing your stepfather? One reporter pushed forward. Taylor gripped my hand tighter, shoulders slightly hunched. I shielded her and whispered, "Don't look at them. I'm right here. You're safe." Inside, the judge, a stern, middle-aged woman in black-rimmed glasses, banged the gavel, instantly stretching the tension like a drawn bowstring. The jury of 12 ordinary citizens, housewives, engineers, retirees, sat silently on the right, eyes fixed on us. I sat in the front row, heart pounding, knuckles white from gripping the bench. Throughout the proceedings, Claude denied every charge: long-term abuse, threats, psychological torment, trespassing. Each day he appeared smug in the defendant's chair, wearing a cheap suit, hair slicked back, yet his eyes still burned with anger. "I only ever cared for my daughter. Taylor invited me to America. All those old stories are lies," he swore before the judge, his heavy French accent making every word grate even more. His defense attorney, a sleazy man I'd come to despise, twisted the narrative. The defendant is a loving stepfather and the alleged victim is seeking revenge over family disputes. Hearing that made my blood boil, but Marcus stayed calm. "They're desperate. The evidence will speak for itself." Then Marcus presented the hidden camera footage, the kitchen assault, Claude shoving Taylor to the floor and beating her. The courtroom fell dead silent. "This is direct evidence of assault and psychological abuse," Marcus declared as the video played on the large screen. Claude went pale and stammered, That's doctored." Next came the old hospital records from France, yellowed pages describing repeated injuries. "Clear signs of prolonged domestic violence," Marcus explained, passing them to the jury. Neighbor testimonies, the old man across the street recounting midnight screams. Teachers like Madame Dupont describing a terrified little girl desperate to stay after school. Each piece of evidence struck Claude's defenses like a blade. His face flushed crimson while his attorney tried to dismiss the statements as mere hearsay with no credibility. But the jurors shook their heads, eyes filled with disgust. I held Taylor's hand tighter with every exhibit. She trembled but whispered, "They believe us, Adonis." The most intense day was when Taylor took the stand. The room was packed, cameras flashing, the air thick enough to choke on. She wore a simple white dress, hair in a neat bun, legs shaking as she walked forward. I sat below, heart thundering, silently praying, "You can do this, baby." But this time she did not lower her gaze. Taylor stood tall and looked straight at the judge and jury. Her voice started shaky but grew stronger with every word. "I am Taylor Keaton, and Claude Beaumont was never my stepfather. He was the man who tortured me from childhood." She recounted every horrifying detail. The belt lashes that tore skin, the nights hiding under the bed while he roared her name, the drunken moments he touched her in sickening ways. He used the vile rumors he himself spread to threaten and control me, making me live in shame and self-loathing for years. The courtroom fell into absolute silence. Only a stifled sob broke from the public gallery. The jurors stared at Claude with open revulsion. He sat hunched, face ashen, unable to meet anyone's eyes. When Taylor stepped down, Claude erupted, cursing, calling her a lying traitor, causing uproar. The judge banged the gavel, the silence, but he kept snarling, face purple with rage. "You'll regret this, you little bitch. I'll tell the world exactly what you are." His attorney tried to pull him down, but suddenly Claude froze. His furious eyes widened as if he'd seen a ghost. I followed his gaze. In the back rows sat an elegant woman, light makeup, pale pink lipstick, perfectly styled glossy hair, clearly wealthy in a black silk dress, pearl necklace, and designer handbag. She sat perfectly straight, staring at Claude with an icy, unblinking gaze that seemed to pierce his soul. I didn't recognize her. She wasn't a witness or press, but her presence made Claude visibly tremble. Knuckles white on the chair, face drained of color. After several suffocating seconds, he tried to speak but only stammered, then slumped forward and fell silent. Finally, after 3 grueling weeks, the verdict came. The judge read in a grave voice, "Claude Beaumont is sentenced to 25 years imprisonment for prolonged domestic violence, psychological torture, assault, threats, criminal trespass, and intentional infliction of injury." The courtroom erupted, applause from the gallery, Taylor's sobs of relief, and Claude, head bowed, silently led away in handcuffs. I held Taylor's hand as we walked out, exhausted, legs weak, mind spinning with images. Taylor on the stand, the evidence presented, and that moment Claude froze. Reporters swarmed outside. "Mrs. Keaton, how do you feel?" Taylor managed a faint smile. "Justice has been served." We pushed through the crowd. The cool San Diego breeze carried the scent of the ocean like a quiet celebration. Right at the courthouse entrance, the elegant woman stood waiting, leaning against a pillar, handbag in hand, watching us with quiet anticipation. Taylor stopped, a flicker of confused recognition crossing her face, something strikingly familiar in the deep brown eyes and faint smile. But she couldn't place it. "Excuse me, do we know you?" Taylor asked softly. The woman opened her mouth as if to speak, lips trembling slightly, then closed it again. She simply gazed at us both with a long, distant, heavy look. Without a word, she turned and walked slowly toward a sleek black car parked nearby. Taylor was too drained and overwhelmed to dwell on it. She leaned on my shoulder. "Let's go home, honey." But something stirred in me. That woman's eyes. They were uncannily like Taylor's, only older, carrying decades of unspoken pain. I glanced back curiously, but in that moment all I wanted was to hold my wife and finally rest. After the trial, life for Taylor and me slowly settled back into place. The first weeks were a quiet period of recovery, like a wound slowly closing after a storm. We returned to our seaside home in San Diego, now free of Claude's shadow and the haunting hidden room. Taylor began seeing a therapist twice a week, sitting on a soft sofa in a calm office that smelled faintly of lavender essential oil, recounting painful memories without trembling as much as before. She started sleeping better, waking less often drenched in sweat, and her smile returned, more genuine, lighter. "Adonis, I feel like a huge weight has been lifted," she whispered one evening as we sat on the balcony watching the sunset paint the ocean red. Yet I kept feeling someone was watching us, fleeting glimpses at the corner of the street, in the shade of a tree or across the road. At first I thought it was just paranoia from the stressful trial, with occasional news reports and online comments still circulating. But no, it was too real. One afternoon while getting the mail, I froze. The elegant woman was standing at our gate, peering through the iron fence into the backyard where Taylor was watering flowers. It was the same woman who had silenced Claude in the courtroom, wearing a gray silk dress, light makeup, perfectly styled wavy hair, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. She stood there, clutching her handbag strap, eyes fixed on Taylor. My heart raced, but I stayed calm and approached. "Can I help you? Who are you?" She smiled gently, her voice soft with a French accent. "Oh, I'm sorry if I startled you. I'm Renee. I just moved nearby, 3 houses down. I love this neighborhood, so I often take walks." Her explanation sounded reasonable, but those eyes, deep, tormented, sent a chill down my spine. I nodded politely. "Yes, it's a quiet area. Good day." She turned to leave, but glanced back at our house one last time before disappearing. In the following days, I kept seeing her around the neighborhood, always at a careful distance. Sometimes at the nearby park watching us walk. Sometimes at the cafe across the street, eyes turned toward our kitchen window while Taylor cooked. She never approached directly, but her presence felt like a ghost, making me uneasy. One evening after we'd finished dinner, Taylor's homemade pasta, candlelight flickering, soft music playing, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Renee standing under the yellow streetlight, wearing a silk coat, holding her handbag, face pale. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I need to talk." I invited her in. Taylor politely offered, "Hanem, please sit. Would you like some tea?" Renee stepped inside, visibly nervous, hands trembling slightly as she sat on the sofa. The living room suddenly felt charged, like the air before a storm. She was silent for a few seconds, looking at Taylor with overwhelming emotion, then pulled an old photograph from her bag and held it out with both hands as if it were the most precious thing she owned. The moment Taylor saw it, a picture of an 8-year-old girl smiling brightly next to a young mother under the French sun, she panicked, screamed, and backed away. Her face went white, eyes filled with fear and rage. "No, this can't be happening." She fled upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. Heart-wrenching sobs echoed down. I ran after her, knocking. "Baby, it's me. Open the door." Through the door, voice breaking. "Adonis, please leave me alone for now. I need to be by myself." I went back downstairs, confused and alarmed, staring at the woman still sitting there, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mrs. Renee, who are you really? Why are you hurting my wife like this?" I asked sharply, worry making my tone harsh. Only then did she sigh, tears falling, and reveal the truth. She was Renee Callahan, Taylor's biological mother. The words hit me like lightning. Renee, the mother who vanished, the one Taylor believed had abandoned her. She sat there, voice trembling, and told her story. I fled from Claude because I couldn't take the violence anymore. He beat me every night and threatened to kill us both if I tried to take Taylor. That rainy night I escaped alone, planning to come back for her later, but Claude moved and I couldn't find her. I lived in fear for years, changing my name, working in distant cities. She paused, wiping tears. When I finally had money and stability from my fashion business, I searched for Taylor, but no one knew where she was. I lived in Paris, following leads from afar, but it was hopeless. When I saw the trial on television, I learned she was alive, and that Claude was the monster who had ruined my daughter's life. I flew to America immediately. I sat in court just to see her, but I was too ashamed of abandoning her, to reveal myself right away. She said she didn't expect forgiveness. She only wanted to call Taylor my daughter once in her life. Her voice broke with remorse. I know I was wrong, but I love her. Every day I've lived has been about finding her. I was torn between emotion and confusion. This was Taylor's mother, the woman she had both mourned and hated. I gently asked Renee to leave for now. Taylor was too overwhelmed. Please go home. She needs time to calm down. We'll reach out. Renee nodded, tears falling, and left with heavy steps. That night I held Taylor as she sobbed, saying she could never forgive the mother who left her alone with the monster Claude for all those years. Curled up, she cried herself to exhaustion. Why did she abandon me? I lived in hell because of her. I hate her. I stroked her hair, listening, my heart breaking. In the days that followed, Renee kept trying to see Taylor, but Taylor refused. I hate her. I'm not ready, Adonis. I was the only one who met her, listening to the broken story of a deeply remorseful woman. Renee told me about her life, working in restaurants, building a successful fashion business, wealthy but lonely. I dream of Taylor every night, she said, eyes red. I realized Renee meant no harm. She was a mother consumed by guilt who had run too long and didn't know how to begin again. She brought gifts. Old books Taylor loved as a child, family photos, but Taylor rejected them. Thanks to my patience and Renee's sincerity, Taylor slowly began to reconsider. I gently shared what Renee had told me. Sweetheart, she's truly sorry. She didn't abandon you on purpose. Taylor said nothing, but I saw her crying quietly while looking at the old photos. Finally, she agreed to meet her mother one quiet afternoon in the park near our house. Taylor stood at a distance, voice cold. Why are you here now? What do you want? Renee broke down and knelt. My daughter, I'm so sorry. I was wrong to leave you. I should never have left you alone. Taylor didn't hug her, didn't call her mom, but said she would forgive, though she wasn't ready for Renee to step fully into her life yet. I'll forgive you, but I need time. Renee wept, still on her knees, thanking her for that small chance. Her eyes looked like someone who had just been pulled from drowning after 20 years. Taylor stood still, tears falling, but her voice calm as she said everything would take time, and this was only the first step. After all the upheavals, from that fateful house viewing, the nights spent watching through hidden cameras, the tear-filled confrontation, the storm of the trial, to Renee's unexpected return, our lives finally began a new chapter. Taylor and I decided to sell the house that held so many painful memories. The two-story White House with its basement hidden room had become a constant reminder of the hell we had endured. Claude's shouting, the bruises on Taylor's face, the nights I lay awake eaten by suspicion. We didn't want to live where every corner whispered of suffering. Juliet, our old real estate agent, helped us sell it quickly. We moved to a quieter suburb of San Diego, just a few blocks from the ocean. The new house was smaller, with a vibrant flower garden and a balcony overlooking green hills. A place to start over with no secrets and no ghosts. Renee quietly moved nearby too, a few streets away, into a small but cozy apartment. She never pressured us. She simply said, I just want to be close to my daughter, even if only from a distance. Taylor didn't object. It was a silent, reluctant acceptance. I arranged for Taylor to see Dr. Elena, a therapist specializing in childhood trauma. Dr. Elena was a gentle middle-aged woman whose warm office was filled with books. She became Taylor's anchor. In the early sessions, Taylor still trembled as she spoke of rainy nights in France, the whistle of the belt through the air, the endless terror. "I still feel like that little girl, doctor," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Dr. Elena listened, taught her breathing techniques, and slowly, thanks to my patience in driving her to every appointment, holding her after every breakdown, and Taylor's own quiet progress, the nightmares grew rarer. She no longer woke screaming Claude's name drenched in sweat. The panic attacks became fewer. She began sleeping through the night and dreaming of the future instead of the past. Renee started visiting under the pretext of helping with chores, cooking familiar French dishes like ratatouille or crepe, tidying the house with skilled hands, tending the flower garden Taylor loved. She never forced deep conversations. She simply worked in silence, occasionally sharing light stories about her younger days in Paris. Taylor kept her distance at first, eating at the table without making eye contact, answering in short sentences. But she no longer avoided or turned away. One day, when Renee brought a bouquet of lavender from her own garden, Taylor accepted it and whispered, "Thank you." It was a small step, but it meant everything. I watched from afar, heart warming at the sight of the two women, mother and daughter, slowly finding their way back to each other. Renee was patient, atoning day by day. Taylor, though still carrying deep anger, began to see that this love was not fake. A year passed in the blink of an eye, filled with peaceful days and small challenges. Then came the joyful surprise. Taylor was pregnant. We cried with happiness under the San Diego sun, hugging each other, and decided to name our daughter Ella Rose Keaton. Ella, from Taylor's old dream, Rose in honor of Renee. Pregnancy wasn't easy. Taylor often worried that her past might affect the baby, but with Dr. Elena's support in mind, she made it through. The day Ella was born, her first cry filled the delivery room. Taylor looked at our daughter and sobbed, "She's so beautiful." Ella was a tiny angel with jet black hair and her mother's deep brown eyes, bringing new light into our family. Our home overflowed with baby laughter, the scent of formula, and sleepless nights rocking her to sleep. Renee was invited the very first day. She stood at the hospital room door, tears streaming as she gazed at her granddaughter. "Oh, she looks just like you did." Renee cared for Ella with the devotion of a mother who had once lost the chance to raise her own child. She came every day, rocking Ella to sleep with old French lullabies, changing diapers, preparing bottles with practiced hands. "I used to dream of doing this with you," she once whispered to Taylor, without pushing. Ella quickly grew attached to her grandmother, crying when Renee left, giggling when picked up. Taylor often watched them with emotions she couldn't name. Sometimes, seeing Renee push Ella's stroller through the garden, Taylor's eyes would glisten. "It feels strange, Adonis, like a dream." I held her. "This is real family, love." Gradually, the ice between them melted, not all at once, but in tiny moments. Renee teaching Taylor her own mother's recipes, Taylor asking about Renee's childhood, the first awkward hugs. One autumn afternoon, golden leaves drifting past the window while I held Ella and Taylor prepared baby food in the kitchen, the moment arrived unexpectedly. Ella started fussing, waving her little arms for food. Taylor turned to Renee sitting nearby and handed her the spoon. "Mom, would you feed her for me?" The room fell silent. Taylor froze, mouth open in disbelief at what she had just said. I stood stunned, still holding Ella. Renee covered her mouth, tears streaming, her whole body shaking with emotion. For nearly 20 years, she had not heard the word mom from the daughter she had lost. That single word was healing medicine, erasing decades of guilt. Taylor's eyes reddened. She turned away in embarrassment, but Renee stepped forward, gently embraced her and sobbed, "My daughter, thank you. Thank you for giving me one more chance to be your mother." She took Ella, feeding her with trembling hands, while Taylor stood there, tears falling but a small smile breaking through. That moment marked the final melting of the ice between them, not because of time alone, but because love had bravely returned after so much hurt. Taylor didn't suddenly throw her arms around her mother, but from then on the word mom came naturally. Mom, did Ella sleep well today? Or Mom, can you watch her for me? Renee became an irreplaceable part of our family, the last missing piece. The months and years that followed were filled with warmth. Taylor opened up more, sharing stories of her life in America and the nightmares now behind her. Renee became her emotional anchor, exchanging recipes and telling stories of her own childhood so Taylor could understand her better. I watched the two women I loved heal, Renee beaming as she held her granddaughter, Taylor peaceful as she embraced her mother. Our home rang with laughter, Ella babbling gamma, Renee singing lullabies, Taylor laughing, Mom, Ella looks just like you when you were young. One quiet evening, as the three of us watched Ella sleep in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling, angelic face serene, I silently reflected on the long, hard road our family had traveled. The scars from that fateful house viewing, the fear-filled nights watching the cameras, the tear-soaked confrontation, the courtroom storm, Renee's return, everything played in my mind like a slow-motion film. We had nearly broken, Taylor with her stained past, me devoured by suspicion, Renee eaten by guilt. Yet we had survived through love, patience, and the courage to face the truth. I realized the most important thing: the past cannot be erased, but it can be overcome. Pain cannot be avoided, but it can be healed. And truth, no matter how brutal, is always the first step towards saving a soul. I close our family's story with this message: never underestimate the fear inside the person you love. Let them speak, let them cry, let them be weak, and be strong enough to stand beside them, even when they no longer have the strength to stand beside themselves.